Run it back.
Ready?
Keep it light.
There's so many out there, you just don't know.
Which ones to watch and when to say no. That's why Ryan and
Andrew
watch. So you don't have to.
Like a rhyme in a song, we all belong. Like a bird in a tree, we're meant to be. Like a nose and a tail, like a horse and a trail. Like a bass and a fiddle, like a laugh and a riddle. Like a pond and a frog, like a bump and a log. We're a hand and a glove, an example
purebred down home, true sweet harmony. Every crowd we face,
every school we chase, anytime, any place,
we're in harmony.
every time we howl, every line we growl,
Every vow,
we're in harmony. We're in harmony, 'cause we're in harmony.
And we're live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 29 of
We watch, so you don't have to.
the Bad Movie Podcast, starring Ryan Webb and
My co-host who introduced me just now, Andrew Price.
Today we watched a Disney classic, Fox and the Hound 2.
A Disney classic, terrible sequel, Fox and the Hound 2, is what you meant to say. I don't want to mislead. I don't want to mislead people. Wait, did you like this movie? Is that what you're surprising me with?
Is it a sequel? Do you think it's a sequel?
Oh, I see where you're going. No. Funnily enough, it is not a sequel. It is a midquel, the little-known midquel. What's
So-
midquel, you ask?
Do you have the definition? I had to look it up.
Well, it's basically another installment of a story or movie that takes place in the middle of the first one. So the classic Disney movie that you know and love, Fox and the Hound, this thing that came 20 years later,
At least.
I don't know
yeah.
what it was, whatever.
Way
Decades
too
later,
late. Far too late.
it is a little detour in the middle of that movie is what it's trying to get us to believe, but there's a lot of things wrong with that.
Well, because I think in the first movie, the Fox and the Hound meet as like kids, like when they're younger,
Yeah.
and then they enter adulthood, and so this
Yep.
quote unquote sequel takes place and during that kind of transition time from the first one.
Yeah, exactly. It's yeah, exactly. This whole they're pups, kids for this whole movie. And what's a baby fox called?
A pup?
Also a pup?
I don't know. A little fox?
Hey,
I don't think they have a name.
that's definitely not true. What
Cub?
a baby
Like
fox is called a
bear?
kit. A kit, a pup, or a cub. You were right, dude. Gotta give a summary. You gotta give a summary.
You kind of have to explain the summary of the first one and then explain how this one ties in.
Here, I'll give the summary of the first one, and then you talk about the second one. How's that?
I'll interrupt you.
In the middle of me talking.
In the middle, and then you finish out the rest of the first one.
Okay, let's see. How do we do this? Well, then I guess
don't know.
in that case, the first half of the classic tale of Fox and the Hound, the original, is that a fox, a baby fox, is abandoned, or its mother gets killed, or something like that. Classic Disney style, right? And
Brutal.
so he's kind of, removed from the typical like pressures and social order of what it means to be a wild fox. And he meets this baby, a puppy named Copper and Tod. Todd's the fox, Copper's the dog. and they become friends, and all the animals and everything around them are like, I can't believe that fox and that dog are friends. That's crazy. Like, how can they be friends? They're like natural enemies. Like, dogs are supposed to hunt foxes, and then hunters kill the fox and all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of the beginning. Do you want to jump in with the crappy sequel, or do you want me to finish out what happens in Fox and Hound 1?
And shortly after they meet, they're hanging out in the middle of the field when all of a sudden they see that the county fair or the circus is coming down or something.
Already worse.
There's all of these cars driving by with there's like a quartet of singing dogs that captures their attention. There's like the world's largest pig. There's like clowns and all this crazy stuff. And so they basically look at each other and they're like, well, we've got to go to this fair. Well, Copper's kind of down on himself. He's really depressed throughout the movie, but he's down on himself because he's not really a good hunter. He is. Because he's not a good hunting dog. And so he's trying to find his talent. And he sees this quartet of singing dogs driving by, and he's like, oh, I want to join them. He becomes fascinated with them. He's like, that's going to be my claim to fame or whatever. So they make it to the fair. He quickly joins this quartet of singing dogs led by Reba McEntire and Patrick Swayze, I think.
Yeah.
Is the male lead. So they kind of take in Copper. He starts singing with them and performing in shows, becomes this star. Meanwhile, that kind of leaves Tod to basically just be alone, and he kind of is not cool with that.
Copper's spending all his time with his new dog band friends. Tod's jealous.
He's forgotten about his buddy. And so Tod is trying to get him back.
Yeah, long story short, everyone wins in the end. Everyone's happy. Tod and Copper become friends again. That's the end of the crappy sequel. Do you want to go back into the original now?
Yeah, go for it.
Copper's owner says, we're going to teach you how to be a hunting dog, and he takes Copper off. He goes away for the winter, learns how to be a hunting dog, and he comes back, and guess what? Copper and Tod are a little bit more grown up, and now Copper is a cold-blooded killing machine.
He doesn't give a fuck.
And, well, he does somewhere deep down, but like now the world has taught him that they're not supposed to be friends and that he's got to hunt him. And it's this whole thing. There's a big fight scene, and in the end, Copper turns a blind eye and says, just get out of here, Tod. I'm not going to kill you. And they run away. But it's a sad thing where it's like they can't really be friends.
Oh, so he spares him. I don't remember the end of that movie playing out that way, but I just remember it being really sad as a kid.
Dude, it was like the saddest movie of all time.
Like, I think I only watched it one time because it was like so traumatic, but I don't know why it was sad. I feel like I remember like the Hound was abandoned in the middle of the forest by the owner or something as well. There was a lot of like sad shit, orphaning and abandoning and friends becoming enemies. Like pretty tough stuff for a children's movie.
Totally. Which is so interesting that this movie, the sequel, is so opposite. I mean, like, I'm glad we went through in that possibly pretty disjointed like rundown of like the midquel, quote unquote midquel, that happens like as this sequel, because it just doesn't make sense, because the Fox and the Hound 1 is just such a totally different like movie that has so much like heart and like feeling and like meaning. And yeah, it's sad, but like compare that to like that classic story to this, and this one's just such a like shallow piece of crap. You know what I mean?
Well, there's no emotion. I mean, it's just, the whole thing is just filler. It's broken up by songs. There's not a whole lot of substance. Did you notice there was like a cricket or like a little grasshopper that like whenever a scene would fall flat, which happened all the time, it would pan over to this cricket and he'd start jumping around like crazy. And it's like, oh, it's this like shiny object or whatever. Yeah. Oh, forget about that. Let's move on to this. And then they'd break out into song and whatever. We're getting too.
No. Speaking of the songs, though. Speaking of the songs, what I thought was interesting is that the version of the Old South that they did in the original is sort of this like raw, kind of like somewhat romanticized version of the South. And then like all the music's like bluegrass and kind of like twangy, and like it's just this totally different thing. And you flash forward, and it's like now the version of the South that they're presenting in this like this new one is just such a dopey like hillbilly version of the South, and it's all like Jeff Foxworthy is in the movie, and it's like just like pop country music. Like I think there's a Rascal Flatts song in this.
I thought I heard a Rascal Flatts song. I was almost positive, but I checked the Wikipedia. It didn't mention Rascal Flatts.
Oh, really?
I'm positive it was them. It was that.
They want to be disassociated with it.
Yeah, I think so. It's probably for the best.
We leap into the river deep. Who can make the biggest splash?
But do you know what I mean, though? It's like
Well, it was just a very like tame, like toned down. I don't know. It was just like way too kid friendly. Whereas the original wasn't afraid to go there. You know, this one just played it safe.
You know why?
And, didn't feel anything.
I think you know. My theory is that this is a classic millennial movie.
I think so.
It's like everybody wins, everybody's happy, nothing sad happens, right?
Yeah.
And the biggest thing in the original, it was like, oh, these two characters come from different like social classes, and like they're not able to be friends, but they are friends, and the whole world doesn't want them to be friends, and it's kind of this like higher level like message. Whereas in this one, what's the whole thing? The whole conflict is like the dogs want to be famous singers. They want to like sing at the Grand Ole Opry and get like a bunch of money to do. What are these dogs going to do with all this money, by the way?
Well, yeah, and the focus really wasn't on the Fox and the Hound so much. There was also drama happening within like the quartet of the singing dogs, like
Dixie and Cash were fighting.
In the end, the very last scene, the Fox and the Hound bring Dixie and Cash together. And that's sort of like how it ended. It's like, it's not about the fucking dog. It's about the Fox and the Hound. They had nothing. They were just sort of like in the background supporting cast. Well,
and it's like, am I supposed to be happy that Dixie and Cash got together in the end? Like they actually they loved each other, but then Cash like kicked her out of the band because he wanted to be famous and she wanted to be famous, and they wanted to be more famous. It's like this is like a Kardashian version of the world, right? It's like right? It's like these dogs are even dogs are fame obsessed in this new world. Is that what's happening? Like I don't know, it's just so weird, right?
I just didn't know what to get from that. And there was like domestic shit happening between the two of them, Dixie and Cash. At times where I was like, "Ooh, this is like, I don't know."
They were having a spousal argument.
Yeah,
yes.
It made me feel uncomfortable a little bit. So I guess that was sort of like the only adult theme, you know, kind of throughout. But I just feel like that shouldn't have been there. That shouldn't have been put in there.
Dude, I took a note during that too. I was like, are they having like a spousal argument in this kids movie? Like, what the heck is happening?
It was very weird, dude.
They just want to be famous, though, dude. They just wanted to be famous.
So why don't we switch gears? There was a lot of funny shit that happened in this movie.
If you say so. I'm just kidding. I can probably find something funny here.
One of the first lines in the movie that I laughed at was between the Fox and the Hound. It was within five minutes. They're walking along, and Copper goes, "What stinks?" And Tod goes,
"Yeah,
I do. I had socks for lunch."
Yeah, and you thought that was funny.
Well, just because it fell so flat, you know.
Yeah, I know. Well,
it didn't actually make me laugh. I was just like, "What?" That was the punchline.
Yeah, it really set the tone for how this was going to be, where it was like just so dope. I don't know, like, I went back and watched the trailer for the original because I was like, the Fox and the Hound were both like sweet, genuine characters, and now they're like this. They're making him this like dopey sock eating dog that like is like, I smell, like it's getting back to like, I don't know.
Well, they were both voiced by like 5-year-olds or something. It was just like little kids just babbling to each other, you know. Maybe that's why they needed, because they had Patrick Swayze, Reba McEntire. They're like, whatever, just get little kids. Like, I feel like the kids that voiced them this time around were a lot younger than in the first movie when they were kids. Do
you know who voiced them in the first movie?
The adult version was voiced by Kurt Russell. He did Copper, I believe.
Yeah, you're right. He's the man.
Amazing. It's amazing. I mean, that's a great movie.
By the way, quick shout out to Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell, if you're listening to this podcast, you're the man.
He's definitely listening.
Yeah.
He's a stud. But so how is it in this midquel they actually got younger then? It's like a weird fucking time travel thing that happened.
Yeah. The midquel, we already talked about it, but it just doesn't need. Why didn't they just do
A prequel? Well, but then they wouldn't have met by then because they met in the first one.
Well, dude, they could have done a sequel though, like a proper sequel, and the dogs are just grown up, and maybe the dogs have kids. The dog has kids, and the fox has kids, and then like the sequel's about their kids going through the same struggles they went through. Like, wouldn't that have been more appropriate than just being like, oh yeah, that beloved movie that you like are really fond of? Well, there's a couple of missing days in the middle of that we'd like to tell you about, and it's all about like the county fair and getting famous. It's like, there's probably a reason the first one skipped over that. Like, that doesn't sound interesting.
Yeah, well, I feel like midquels never really happen. Like, I can't even think of another midquel,
I had to I looked it up previously, and there's like a couple of famous examples. But yeah, it's pretty rare because it doesn't quite.
I guess,
quite make
okay,
sense.
Here's one example. The Narnia book, The Horse and His Boy, takes place during the reign of the Pevensie children, which happens towards the end of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I'm not familiar with that, but there you go.
Really solid example to pull out and
You guys know The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. The only other midquel that's ever come out.
Yeah. Let's see. Funny. We were trying to. Speaking of funny, who voices Waylon and his brother?
Who's Waylon? Oh, that was one of the singing dogs, like the dopey one.
Yep.
No.
Jim Cummings.
Any relation to Alan?
Just a shout out to an old joke in one of the old episodes of ours. I don't remember. I'm glad you got that. That would have been really awkward if you hadn't put that together.
Oh my god.
Oh, hey, I've got something. How about when Dixie the dog is always talking to Zelda the cat, and she's making all these she's making all these uncomfortable references, like this whole movie's filled with like hillbilly type Southern isms, Yeah. Everyone's like, oh, that's more uncomfortable than a trouser full of bumblebees, and stuff like that or whatever.
I've got a few examples on that actually. I noticed that
from the actual
well.
movie.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm as slow as an iron toad, or I'm as hungry as a mouse in a cheese shop, or they happen all the time. It was very easy for me to get. I'm as busy as a farmer with one hoe and two rattlesnakes.
That's good. I looked some up that are even better. Those are pretty tame. Like, I like this one. You look as happy as a dead pig in sunshine.
Oh God, that's kind of morbid.
Yeah, don't really get that one. Anyways, in the movie though, Dixie is like, she turns to the cat and she's like trying to come up with a plan, and she's like, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Oh God.
She's talking to a cat. Isn't that like, yeah, that's pretty messed up, right?
They had a weird relationship, and they're like, I need a drink, and they'd go over to like a cat bowl and drink. Do you remember the little bar setup that they had out there?
Oh yeah,
like alcohol references and stuff. So
yeah,
there were weird adult themes, but I just feel like they just shouldn't have been there at all, just because it was so overwhelmingly like kid friendly. That was kind of the vibe of the movie. But they'd have like the domestic violence, like the bartending outside with the doggy bowls. They had
the grandma dog, and the band is clearly a drinker, right?
Yeah, you know what's funny? I have a note, and I laughed as I was reading through my notes because all it said is Granny Rose burps and wipes her butt everywhere, but I didn't say that was a dog. And that specifically, that was the old dog in the quartet.
You're like, wait, what movie was this again?
Like, holy shit. Just imagining some old lady with her butt everywhere.
Oh, that's good. How about the scene where Dixie tries to sabotage Copper because Copper's singing in the band, and she tries to sabotage him by like giving him peanut butter to eat.
Oh yeah,
and then Todd solves it by like going and grabbing a cow and squirting cow milk from the udder straight into his mouth.
And then they're just laughing. That was. I didn't know what to make of that. My jaw hit the floor.
This fox has a very I don't know. We can edit all that out. I don't know.
Is that what you do when you have a mouthful of peanut butter? You're like, I need milk, and then it just dissolves the peanut butter. Like, I think that would just make everything wetter and sloppier. In fact, it would probably be a choking hazard because he's like a fucking fire hose shot her like directly down his throat.
That was how the movie originally ended. Just
Todd killed Copper.
Copper choked. Todd buried him in the woods and never spoke about it again. And then they were like,
Todd took the stage and he became famous.
What, dude, okay. Also, that whole thing made me think of the Stray Dog Band, which is, again, to your point earlier, the highlight of this whole movie, or the focus of the whole movie, is the Stray Dog Band, right?
Yeah.
Well, isn't it just so weak that the whole conflict is that Copper isn't a stray, and so they kick him out of the band when they find that out? And it's like, why does that matter? Like, let's imagine that you're this stray dog band who's trying to get famous and try out for the Grand Ole Opry so that you can be millionaire dogs, one day. Why do you care if the puppy in your band is not a stray just because your band is called the Strays? Like, but I'm trying to think of a human equivalent.
Well, I think Copper was originally a stray. Like in the first one, wasn't he adopted by the farmer or whatever? He just found him.
Well, maybe. I mean, isn't that what happens with all dogs, right? Like,
not ones that you.
Well, human never has a dog, so.
That's true.
Like, what's the other scenario
Like
other than what you just described?
The dog can give birth to a puppy, and then at that point, it's never a stray. You know.
Well, that happens with all dogs, though, dude.
What are we even talking about?
I'm not sure what argument you're trying to make in this case.
I'm just trying to say maybe they shouldn't have kicked him out because at one point I thought he was a stray.
Do you know how puppies are made?
Yeah. The stork drops him off on the front doorstep.
And if you don't land on a specific doorstep, then you're a stray. Oh man. What else?
I thought
Man,
can we talk real quick about the sexual stuff that happened in this movie? There's a lot of like sexual innuendo. There was a lot of like rump-shaking, and like Dixie would walk off and Cash was like, damn. Like, and it would zoom in on Dixie's like butt and tail. Like, that was kind of weird.
What's going on? Why would you create a sexy dog character? Like, who is that for?
Fucking horny Patrick Swayze, I guess. I don't know.
Hey, dude. Hey, R.I.P. Patrick Swayze, right?
I know. I'll edit that out. Disney, they're a bunch of horn dogs over there. You know, they're kind of known for sexual innuendo throughout their movies. Like, do you remember the scene in Lion King when Simba like collapses on the leaves and they all fly up in the air and it spells out sex?
Dude, I think that's an urban legend.
No, that's actually true. I've seen it.
You've seen it on pictures on the internet?
No. I owned the movie when I was younger. I owned the movie. And I heard about that and I fast forwarded to that scene, and sure enough, clear as day.
I used to always hear that stuff, and like how in Aladdin, like she like whispers something to him on the patio, and I would go back and watch and it would not happen. And I'd be like, oh, that was people like just making shit up.
No, Aladdin would fly up. He flew up into Jasmine's room, and as he jumps off the magic carpet or whatever, he whispers, quick, take off your clothes. You have to turn up the volume really loud.
No way.
For sure, 100,000%. And like the Little Mermaid, the cover, like the box art, there's a big like penis statue.
Yeah, but you can make anything seem like a penis, right?
It's pretty clear that it's a penis. Anyways, with this movie, on top of all the sexual innuendo throughout, the runtime, 69 minutes.
You're right, dude. Yeah. I wonder do you think they had to cut stuff or add stuff just to get like, you know who you can blame for that? The editors.
Oh, absolutely. You
know who edited this movie?
Who?
Ron Price. I'm serious. So, I don't know, man. on the Wikipedia page. I don't know if that's someone you're related to or not, but I feel like we have a chance to get an inside scoop on whether he like was like laughing all pervy and like editing to the perfect amount so that he could like be like, check the runtime out of this movie I edited.
Dude, I'm gonna have to reach out to him. He's definitely a long lost cousin who I'm gonna quickly become friends with. That's amazing. You know, randomly, yeah. I mean, 69 minutes. That was intentional, right? I mean,
yeah,
70 or 68. Like, it's so easy.
It's so easy.
So easy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can think of plenty of stuff to cut from this movie, so you can't tell me that they couldn't have cut something. So
yeah,
you're right.
They definitely couldn't have added anything. There was not much there.
Nothing to add, and in fact, just to be clear again, this whole midquel should not have ever happened. Also, shout out to our sponsor, Motel 6, currently recording this episode using not only the Motel 6 Wi-Fi, but I am sitting on a nice brown suede couch with a roaring gas fireplace while it's hurricane level winds outside along the Oregon coast. And we couldn't be recording this podcast in such a beautifully juxtaposed environment if it wasn't for Motel 6. So you guys need a super cheap hotel room? Motel 6 has got you covered.
Motel 6.
And I'll be emailing you later, Motel 6, for payment.
Give us that money, Motel 6. They could be sponsors. They should be sponsors.
They should be sponsors, totally. And it's like, we've been recording remote. I can shout out locations. I don't know. It just makes sense. I will say, though, side note, they really have upgraded the interiors of these hotels.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it looks nice from what I could see. The fireplace. I mean, it's pretty.
They've ripped out all the carpet that surely smells like cigarette smoke and put in faux wood floors. I don't know. Anyways, enough about
wood floors in there. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm faux wood. I'm sure it's some sort of polymer, some sort of space age polymer, actually.
Okay. Shitty then.
Okay. You've once again insulted our sponsor.
How did the county fair? The county fair got destroyed. There was a lot of shit that happened. Like towards the end of the movie, they ran out of like material, and so everything just fucking got destroyed.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like cartoony, like oversized people with like tiny little ankles, just like wobbling about and kind of like falling over, right? Like
that was such a weird description.
Isn't that the talent scout though? He's like literally
tiny
like,
little ankles.
Doesn't he? He has like. Did I make that up? Doesn't the talent scout have like this like behemoth of a man, but he has little stick legs?
Yeah, he was weirdly drawn. He was a very large man.
Hey, speaking of weirdly drawn, am I right that the animation and like production of this movie, the budget was $24 million?
Was it really that much?
On IMDb, it said estimated budget $24 million. And I'm like, is that how much it costs to animate a movie like this these days with this technology? Or is that like going to Jeff Foxworthy and the other redneck comedy crew guys that are voicing the
It must have
cartoons?
been, well, the majority of the movie was like hand-drawn animation, but there was some like CGI stuff. Like when the car pulled up, that was like all CGI. And the fair, what's it called? The thing with the horses, the carousel? Is that what that's called?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
That was, I couldn't think of the word for some reason.
Gosh, that's so sad. The adult world has really pressed you down so much that you've forgotten what a carousel is.
It's been a while since I've been on one. Actually, last time I was on one was with you in Chicago.
And then we went on the little swings together. Good times, good times. Sorry, what were you gonna say about the carousel?
I don't know. I was just saying that was also CGI. Like I noticed that. I was like, all right, maybe that's where a lot of the money went. That still seems like quite a lot. Well, it's really for the actors too. Reba McEntire was probably like, I'm gonna need $20 million for this.
Yeah. It would explain why they. No offense to Patrick Swayze, he's obviously awesome and his voice was fine, but like he's not really a singer, right? So it was interesting to me that like his character's whole thing is that he's in a dog band and he's a singer. Wouldn't you have just cast some country singer for that? Like you cast Reba McEntire for the female role. Like, why wouldn't you just cast a country singer for the male lead, right? Why Patrick Swayze instead?
Good point. I don't know.
Unless they were like, oh, well, he's a good dancer, and they're like, you idiot, we're gonna draw dogs.
I'm willing to bet he wasn't their first choice. The song, the sort of like the finale, I think the title of the song is "Good Doggie, No Bone."
No, wait, for the outro?
And the next thing you know, he ain't bringing you roses. It's all cold stares, cold shoulder,
Cold noses.
he doesn't write, doesn't call, doesn't howl your name. All that he can think about is fortune and fame. There ain't nothing I can do to turn his head and excite him. Sometimes I swear I just wanna bite him. It's lonely at the top when the lights go down and the cheering stops. You got no real friends, no place to call home. It's all a good doggy. It's all at home. Good doggy. The no bone. No. Good doggy.
No bone.
Good doggy. No bone. Good doggy. And no bone. Good doggy. And no bone. Good doggy. Not even a little bitty bone.
What a great tune. Gets me every time.
So catchy. But again, kind of sexual, right? Good doggy, no bone.
Is it Dixie singing to Cash too? Is that kind of the deal? Yeah.
So she's
Again.
saying, good doggy, but you don't get to bone me or something?
Definitely, dude. And that's the thing. It's like you're talking about like Little Mermaid and Aladdin. Like all those movies are about like love interests and romance and stuff like that. But they just went pure sex appeal with this one. It's like they're not in love. They're just trying to get famous and they want a bone. It's like I guess it's kind of like the iPhone generation, dude. It's this new world we live in where it's just like that's the goal, right? Get famous and.
It's definitely the most hardcore G-rated movie I've ever watched.
What about Cool World?
I haven't seen that. I'm pretty sure that was PG though.
Yeah, I think it was actually higher than that. It just had one cartoon character and Brad Pitt.
PG-13 maybe. But this I think was G, right?
Yeah, it's got to be. It has
to be.
It's Fox and the Hound too. It's G. It's got to be G.
So you can have domestic violence in G-rated movies and like all the sexual innuendo, make it 69 minutes and throw a G rating on it. That's
Definitely, dude.
crazy.
You know what? Little babies nowadays watch movies on their computer, on their iPhone. So when you're setting the ratings for movies, you got to be like, oh, you know what? This is definitely G compared to everything they're doing on the internet. You know?
Whoa.
Right?
Yeah. I guess so.
These little babies nowadays, these little kids, they got access to all kinds of stuff. They're on their little baby iPads, watching all kinds of movies, watching shows on chat forums and stuff like that. I don't know what they're doing. I just see them at dinner. They're at dinner with their parents. Their parents are on their phones. Baby's on its iPad. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm throwing it out there as an option. I got a fun quote to read, but it kind of just gets back to the whole supporting my whole millennial theory. Would now be a good time for that or no?
Yeah, go for it. I think I've got like one or two other things too. Go for it.
So I thought this was hilarious. I was scrolling around IMDb and this was one of the reviews. It's called, the title is "What's with all the hate for this movie?" And they rated this movie a 10 out of 10. I saw the original Fox and the Hound on Netflix, but once I did, I felt kind of sad and morbid. I actually cried on my bed right after I saw it. Nice ideas, great characters, and all that good stuff. But the idea of two best friends becoming enemies and actually trying to kill each other is not my cup of tea. I'm not saying that I hate the movie. I still think it's one of the great Disney classics along with Robin Hood and Lady and the Tramp. I just think it left me with a cloud of sadness and melancholy. Then I saw the sequel and I was pleasantly surprised.
No.
This one actually relieved me of the bittersweet feeling I got the first time with the first one. The film is a prequel and starts all over and decides to change the ideas of the first one by lightening it up a bit. Not correct, but anyways. It's a midquel, you idiot. Something that normally seemed as a cop-out, but it's perfect for me. So now we have a film that leaves with me with a more positive feeling than the cold, dark one like the original. Perfect. So here's a generation of viewers that literally cried themselves in their bed when they saw the first one, and then is like, oh, thank goodness the second one was all positive. And it's like, okay, that's fine and everything, but like, how weird is that, dude? Isn't that so weird?
But I think everybody cried at the first one, and that's okay. Because it was packed with emotion, and that's why that movie is a classic.
It was real.
It's not a correct response to be like, oh, it's shitty that I cried at this movie. I need something to where like I can't have actual emotion, and that's my happy place. That's fucking crazy.
So you know what? It's like I wish I could comment on this and just be like, everyone gets a trophy. You know what I mean? This is such an everyone gets a trophy kind of like generation, you know?
Dude, you should send that person a link to this podcast where we put them on blast to see if they respond.
I mean, I didn't share their,
Where they from?
I mean, Jesus.
So we didn't mention, but the reason we watched this movie is because it got a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's a tough feat. 0%, especially for an animated movie, especially a Disney animated movie. We had to check it out. It's insane. Some of the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes are pretty funny. Let's see. The question is surely not, are there better sequels or even midquels to the original Fox and the Hound, but could there possibly be a worse one? Rating 3 out of 10.
Wait, time out. Is that person saying that the question is not whether there are other sequels or midquels for this movie? I'll tell you right now.
You know what? They probably didn't mean to the original Fox and the Hound. They should have just said better sequels or midquels out there.
In general. Oh, okay.
It's like said that. Okay.
That's like a review for someone that's out there just really seeking any sequel or any midquel. Is that what it is?
It's like out of all the sequels and midquels, just for Fox and the Hound, this is the worst one. All right. There's this one that says, stupid and irreverent in a useless way, and a bunch of crappy songs don't help.
I feel kind of bad because when you hear that, you're just like, man, you're being so negative. But then I feel like we fall into that. Like we're saying that, you know, you just gotta. What's something good that happened in this movie? Was there anything good or redeeming?
Was there anything good?
How about this? Let's skip over the good stuff for this movie. We'll say some nice things about a different movie we watch in the future because I can't come up with anything. I agree with that guy that all the stuff he said about it being terrible.
There's a quote here that says, "I was higher than the fireworks."
Who's in the movie? They said that?
Yeah, I think it was Todd or something. It was meant to be like innocent, like I was up high, like in the sky. Like, man, I was higher than those fireworks.
Well, I guess if you think about it, if this is a midquel, it takes place in the middle of the original where they grow up. Maybe he's hitting his teen years and he's experimenting with a little pot at the county fair. You know, is it possible?
I bet if we watched the movie in slow motion, we'd see him like around the corner, like token up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what. Let's just assume that happened because I'm not watching this movie in even regular motion because it was 69 minutes, which is way shorter than any movie we normally watch, but that was still way too long.
If you watch it in slow-mo, it would be the normal like 90 minutes, maybe a little bit longer.
You'd have to watch it at a speed where it's 69 hours and 69 minutes long. Just for editor Ron Price.
In 69 seconds. Oh wait, that would be I'm gonna throw it off.
You need to like slow down the movie to that exact speed and then email that to Ron Price with just like the eye emojis, like I know what you did.
Was it really Ron Price? Are you just messing with me?
No, it really was. There was actually a team. There was two people, but Ron Price was one of them. I'll see if I can find the other one real quick. I cannot. I went off of that page and it's not worth it in the. Yeah, sorry everyone.
Oh, here it is. It's Ron Webb.
No, I can see you holding your hand up with no phone in it, so that does not work.
I forgot webcam. Shit.
You know what I found interesting? Maybe this is actually a tragic movie after all, and it doesn't quite have the happy ending that we think it does, because when the dogs and the band are singing, there's a moment early on in the movie when they're singing and like a kid's walking by the fair, or someone's walking by and they're like, oh, it almost sounds like they're singing, and it momentarily flashes to like their perspective, and instead of like singing dogs, it's actually just like a bunch of dogs like wailing and barking,
just howling like out of tune and stuff.
Yeah, so it's like these dogs have this perception that, you know, they're clearly like singing together and like having lyrics to a song and all this kind of work that they're putting in to become famous in the human world at the Grand Ole Opry. But like, that's never going to work, because if humans actually just hear them as barking dogs, there's no chance in hell that they're going to become famous musicians. So maybe there is actually a tragic message, just like the first Fox and the Hound, and no one got it. You know what I mean? Maybe it's like efforts. They're living in a different world than the humans, and they just can't. They're never going to be able to make it. You know what I mean?
That's really interesting. That was the only time in the movie where that perception kind of shifted. You know,
isn't that sort of weird? That's kind of an interesting sort of like
that is super interesting
thing in general. Yeah. So maybe I'll tell that IMDb reviewer that and just be like, oh, you didn't cry at the sequel or nothing about this? Do you think that reviewer was like a little kid, or like what's the deal there? Because I love in parentheses they put like, I actually cried myself to sleep that night. It's like, whoa.
I'm guessing a kid, because like you and I, like we're not the target demographic for this G-rated movie. So I think it's probably young children watching this movie.
But do you think they're hopping on IMDb to write a review of the movie after they watch it? Is that what kids do? Maybe they do.
Like you said, there's babies that have iPads and stuff, you know? I mean,
that's true. You're right. I was right the first time around.
Yeah, you were right.
Well, I'm glad we came full circle on that. What do you think, dude? I don't know if I can squeeze anything else out of this 69 minutes of animation.
Before I really knew where this movie was going and the whole fair and everything, and Copper was just like moping around the whole time, I was like, he's so fucking depressed. I wrote in my notes, it says, Copper sucks. He's so down on himself. He's just like, I'm just a bad dog. You just say that over and over. Meanwhile, Todd is just this eternal optimist who's just so happy and like poking and like, come on, man. But I mean, if it wasn't for Todd, they'd just be slitting their paws, you know?
Oh my God.
The movie would have ended real quick.
Oh no. Oh, dude. I love the idea of like this midquel. Dude, you're onto something. We need a midquel, but they go through like a goth phase in their teenage years.
Dude, yes.
And they're still friends, but they're sort of like a little like they're like into like eyeshadow, and like they're like listening to like punk rock, and like they're smoking pot at the county fair and stuff, you know?
Just fucking anti-established. They go through like this whole phase, you know?
Dude, that's a proper midquel, right? It's like, you know, Fox and the Hound, where they're kids and then he goes away one winter and they come back and they're grown-ups and they go through their issues. But the story you don't know is what happened to them in their teen years. That's a midquel, dude. Like,
that'd be fucking awesome. I'd watch the shit out of that. It would have to be like rated R or something, PG-13, because there'd be a lot of like 60, drug use.
69-minute runtime.
Keep the 69-minute runtime though. Just for kids.
Copper kind of gets into heroin. Todd's more onto like uppers and stuff like that. He's just like jumpy and like on speed all the time, and loves like, you know, he's a drummer. Copper doesn't really have too many interests. He's sort of just moping around a lot.
They got to do like an intervention in the barn for one of them to just like stop all the drug use.
Isn't the barn where they had their bar set up though?
They had the bar set up outside of the barn. Like there was a pile of like dog bowls and stuff.
Oh, okay. I was just saying like you shouldn't have an intervention if you have a whole bar.
That's a good point, actually.
All right. So that's it. This has been Fox and the Hound 2. Don't watch it. Go ahead and watch the original though.
Yeah, make sure you cry in the original.
You're probably gonna cry though, because it's like it's still. Oh, dude, for real though, we kind of glazed over this. I mean, that movie is really sad.
The first one is so sad.
Yeah,
I don't want to go back and watch it.
Yeah, I sort of said like, oh, this reviewer was talking about how they cried watching Fox and the Hound 1. It's like, I get it. It's super sad. It was a traumatic moment in childhood. So, anyways, let's end on that. And let's shift from traumatic childhood moments to a fun. I don't know. What are you thinking? Maybe like We're in Harmony Part 2 or like version 2 or We're in Harmony version 1 or like what? What are you thinking of going with for the outro?
Probably version 1, right?
And this is who's it by? Who's it by?
By the Singing Strays.
You could almost swear them dogs are really singing.
Like the sun and blue skies, like summer nights and fireflies, like an itch and a scratch.
We're the perfect match.
'Cause we're in harmony. Like a tick and a flea, a bird and a bee, a nose and a tail, a horse and a trail, a pond and a frog, a bump and a log.
We're hand in glove, an example.
Come on, kids, sing with us.
Purebred, down home, true sweet.
Harmony.
Every cry we face.